Okay, so what we are going to see today is to spend our time in just discussing about the results of flood. What happened to the world? This is very important for us who study God's word. It is so important to understand what really happened, why we see the world this way, why it is this way. So let's look at the first change that happened to our earth after the flood. Remember, yesterday, as I was talking, during the flood, what God has done, God, in a way, rearranged tectonic plates. Remember, because the water was so huge, and God has to reduce the amount of water, and there should be land and sea. So in the rearrangements of the tectonic plates, what God had to do, God had to move the water to certain area. That means certain area became so deep, right? So the sea has become so deep, and there are mountains that became so high, right? When God did that work, it was mainly to remove the waters from the earth after the flood. So, I was trying to say, before the flood, mountains could be something like 6,000 to 7,000 feet high. But after the flood, now we have Everest more than 20,000 feet high. So you see this huge difference now happening after the flood, right? So the way that you see the earth now is not the same way that before the flood the earth was. Now the continents that you have now may not be the same continents that you had before the flood. So that was I was trying to say yesterday. Now let's look at the climatic changes. Climatic changes. As many creationists would argue, the pre-flood world would have experienced a much milder climate. You see, what is the point? Before the flood, the weather, the climate was milder. As such, the earth would have been filled with the lush vegetation. Remember, there were a lot of vegetations on the earth before the flood. And there would not have harsh weather cycles that we currently experience in some parts of the world. Consequently, we would understand that post-flood world experienced extremes in cold. Remember, cold is extreme and heat becomes extreme in the changes in the seasons, with the changes in the season. Prior to the flood, Noah and his family had no knowledge of Michigan winter. I was there. I experienced clearly what is there, and it becomes an ice box, right? And especially in many parts of, not only there, and if you go to Siberia, and you will see how harsh weather it is. For example, weather will go for -50 or -60. Now I know that even it is hard for us to, someone like me, to just face a weather that is about like -1 or -2, right? It's very difficult. But understand, so you have in the North Pole and the South Pole. Remember, pole of the earth, you see now ice caps, right? Ice caps. And if you look at your earth globe, you will see the north and south is full of ice. And the question is why, right? So the reason is that after the flood, the climatic condition has changed so much. And recently, I was, I was reading something, and they were saying I think it was from Antarctica somewhere, under the ice, they saw they saw skeletons, not only skeletons, the flesh of they call, what do you call that elephant? Mammoth, something you call, right? That big elephant, mammoth, yes, which has got a lot of hairs, right? That one, yeah. They got from the place where they were full of ice. In the North Pole and South Pole, that it's not a place where creatures can live, because it is throughout the year, it is simply ice, right? Throughout the year, simply ice. So how can mammoth live there? There's a question asked. The reason was that before the flood, the earth weather was not like this. Extreme cold and extreme heat, no. Right? There was milder weather, and there were creatures in the North and South Pole. Right? So that's number thing. Climatic changes. That's number one. Right? So the weather that you experience now, the flood, the famine, all what you experience now is only happen after the flood. Number two, dinosaurs. Now this is the biggest thing, right? People would ask the question, why your Bible doesn't have the word dinosaurs? Now this, that's a legitimate question, right? Why your Bible doesn't have the word dinosaurs? What could be the reason? Can anyone say why Bible doesn't have the word dinosaurs? Anyone? Anyone wants to dare?
Maybe dinosaurs didn't exist that time.
Okay. So how about, were there dinosaurs on the earth? Huh? Yeah, go ahead. Anyone can say.
No, sir.
You think no? So
Yeah.
then how about all the discoveries that you see, skeletons and everything?
It's only a story, I think, sir.
Okay. Well, it may not be stories. I would say, yes, you have these skeletons of dinosaurs and everything. And right now, you can, now in the museums, you have the real thing, right? These huge animals. The question is asked by the people, why Bible doesn't mention dinosaurs, right? That is a question. Now, first of all, the word dinosaurs, do you know when people started to use this word? This is only very like 200 years ago. 200 years ago, people came up with the word dinosaurs. And before that, what was the common word that is used? Anyone? For the big creatures, huge creatures, common word that used? Any idea? No? Have you heard this word? Dragon. You heard the word dragon?
Yes.
Yeah. You know this word dragon. That was the word that has been used throughout the centuries. But the word dinosaurs is a recent thing, right? For example, no, I used to ask, okay, you're asking me, does the Bible have the word dinosaurs? My question will be, is this one. Does the Bible have the word computer? Huh?
No.
No, why? Because computer is what? New thing, right?
Right.
This is newly came up. Bible is written, at least the New Testament is written more than 2,000 years ago,
Yes.
right? So, people would talk about, okay, does Bible have, why Bible doesn't talk about smoking or cigars, that kind of thing. The thing was, when Bible was written, these kind of things were not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bible addresses the things that were there, right? So what Bible talks about, in a sense, I can say yes. Maybe what I will do, we will have sometime later. I will just talk about the real issue with the dinosaurs a little more detail later. I think Bible talks about in the book of Job and about big creatures. All right, Bible do talk about. Okay, so the question for people, what is a big question? Remember, yesterday, we were talking about size of the ark. Remember that one, right? We said ark was so big, its length was 437 feet, and its width was 72, about 73 feet, and its height was about 43 or 44 feet. That means, what is 44 feet means? You know what is 44 feet height means? This is the first floor, right? A 40 feet height of a building means a building that has got at least 4 floors. Imagine 4 floors, because usually here the building has 10 feet high, one floor is 10 feet. So imagine 4 feet high building. That is the height of this ark, and then about 73 feet width is this ark. So the ark is really big. But the question usually asked is this one: did dinosaurs enter the ark? Right, that is the question that usually evolutionists or atheists or people who don't believe in the Bible ask this question, because they want to say Bible is logically cannot be comprehended. It is wrong. It is not right. It is not from God's word, not from God. That's what they wanted to say. So they come up and ask a question: did dinosaurs enter the ark? How can these huge animals enter the ark? Now, how could large dinosaurs such as Brachiosaurus, okay, who was about 50 feet high. Remember, Brachiosaurus is about 50 feet high, which means it is 5-story building high, possibly weighted 80 tons. How can they get into the ark? Right? This is the one that we are talking about, Brachiosaurus. How this could have entered the ark? Now, initially we need to remember that Noah's ark was extremely large. It was a ship of big in nature. It took about 120 years for Noah to build this ark. Another thing we need to remember about dinosaurs is that they are reptiles. Learn that one. Dinosaurs are what? Reptiles. So, for example, a lizard. Our lizard is a reptile. The older a reptile gets, the bigger he gets. The speciality of the reptile is, as it gets old, it becomes so big, right? The largest crocodiles today are the oldest one. And if you look at the crocodiles, crocodiles, right? If you look at them, you will understand that how big, and if it is so old, the crocodiles will be so big. Dinosaurs are unlike most mammals that they reach their full height in young adulthood. You see, what is mammals? What is mammals? I remember yesterday I said mammals are
That gives birth to young ones. Not
yes, give birth, right? Childbearing. All right, but reptiles are not mammals, right? Right? A lizard, lizard, they lay eggs, right? So now, so what happened? Most of the mammals who gives birth to the children, they become they grow to the full stature in their young adulthood, right? A chicken will grow in its full when it is young. In that young adulthood, there will be a growth plateau. But all right, but reptiles are not like that. Reptiles will continue to grow. That means as they grow, as they get older, they will grow more and more and more and more, and they become so big. Since the primary purpose of taking pairs of dinosaurs into the ark was what? Reproduction. Why? Now, remember, God asked Noah to take every kinds of animal pairs. Pairs means male and female. Why? Why male and female? It is simply because after the judgment, after the flood, God wants to fill the earth, right? So reproduction is the purpose, right? Now, that means what God did, God probably brought young adults into the ark, which means they had much more growing to do as they would get older, right? That means God doesn't have to bring 5-story high, brachiosaurus dinosaurs. Doesn't have to. God doesn't have to bring this huge old dinosaurs into the ark. God can bring young dinosaurs, right? God can bring the young one. Young one are relatively smaller. So another fact to remember is that not all dinosaurs are large, right? Maybe it is right. The larger ones like Brachiosaurus and Tyrannosaurus, right? This is the second one here. They get much of the attention because of their size. However, majority of dinosaurs such as Compsognathus, who is not larger than a rooster, and they are much smaller. What we have to understand, not all dinosaurs are bigger. Yes, there are a few of them are very big, a few kinds of them are very big, but not all of them, right? So how did Noah got dinosaurs into the ark? I believe that there were dinosaurs, right? I believe that one, right? And how he got these dinosaurs into the ark? It is, Noah brought young dinosaurs. Young dinosaurs are very small, right? And only dinosaurs become so big because of, years of growth. Now let's ask the question, why? What happened to dinosaurs now? What happened to dinosaurs now? Now, with a change in the Earth's climate and topography, it presented a much harsher environment for survival. What is the problem? Change in the earth climate. Right? It was hard for them to survive. Since the flood, not all species of animals have survived, as written history and fossil records reveal. What the fossil records reveal is this: after the flood, all the animals that were before the flood, not all of them survived. Not all of them. Some of them survived, not all of them. Why? Due to competition for survival with the other animals. Okay, why they were not able to survive? Because they had to compete with the other animals for food. Number two, man's activities. Man started to hunt them down, right? And third, extremely rigorous post-flood climate. Post-flood climate was very, very extreme, rigorous. And what happened is that they were not able to survive. We should not be surprised that most dinosaurs have died off. However, right? However, we should not be surprised to see that many cultures have ancient accounts not only about the flood, but also about dinosaurs. You know, you go to China, remember, if you know China has got a symbol of kind of snake, or a huge animal, right? Yes, you go to most of these countries, and they will have like, they don't call dinosaurs. In olden days, all of them called dragons, right? China has got a nickname, dragon, right? Remember, it is because maybe the shape of China, and people also put a picture of China with a kind of dragon. I don't know, but anyway, you go to most of the cultures, they have what? The pictures of huge creatures, maybe coming from sea or coming, other places, and especially some of the drawings in the caves. Caves drawing tells that people draw the pictures of huge animals, which is a sign that yes, they're, even after the flood, there were instances of huge animals. Not so much, but huge and big animals were there. Now, to find dinosaurs today, for example, if a scientist said, somewhere in Madhya Pradesh in India, they recently dug out eggs of dinosaurs. All right, eggs. You know how big an egg is going to be? It's about the size of a football, soccer ball, size of football. That is the size. That is the size of an egg. So imagine. So the eggs were not so big. It is very small only. When you really compare. So to find dinosaurs today is not a problem for creationists. For those who believe Bible, it's not a problem. We don't have a problem because we know that most of them have died by flood. And those whom Noah brought into the ark, maybe they might have survived for some time, but because of the harsher weather, most of them died, couldn't survive the severe weather. But it is a real problem for the geological column of the evolutionist. They have a problem to account how they died. So you ask an evolutionist, a geologist, how dinosaurs died. How they died. You know what they would say? They will say somewhere from the sky, these meteorites That's how you pronounce meteorites. That came and rained down on the dinosaurs and killed them. That's what they would say. But I would, I don't think that is there is any logic in that. But according to the Bible, yes, they were died because of the flood. Now, third, this is very important. Fossils. We are looking at the results of flood, right? Results of flood. So first one, we looked at climatic changes. Second, we looked at dinosaurs. Now third, we need to look at fossils. A fossil, what is fossil? Fossil is what remains from a plant or animal. Okay? It is the remaining, the leftover of a plant or animal that has been preserved in the earth crust by natural causes. So fossil is what? It is the remaining part that has been preserved in the earth crust by natural causes. A fossil is generally produced when a plant or animal is quickly buried or covered by a heavy layer of sediment. When an animal or plant quickly buried under the earth, very quick, something happened, they went under the earth. That means they were not exposed after their death much into the air. They went into the earth, into the mud, very quick, right? So that's how it becomes fossilized. If the specimen is not covered by sediment or erosion, scavengers will destroy it. Usually that's what happened. Having been buried, minerals will build up in the specimen or specimen's cavity. So those animals who died, remember, they were buried under the earth, under the mud. And once they are buried, minerals will build up in the specimen. That plant or that animal that is there under the earth. Minerals will build up. At present, fossil may occasionally be forming. Now, it is very rare. Fossils are forming now. That means it needs years. However, nowhere in the world do we find fossils being formed on a massive scale like we find in geologic deposits. For example, it is estimated that there may be as much as 800 billion, remember that one, 800 billion remains of vertebrates, that means four skeletons, vertebrates, and had in the Karoo beds of Africa. That is what people estimate. That means there are still billions of fossils are under the earth. Now, imagine. Here is a problem. Fish are unlikely candidates for fossilization. Fish usually are not the candidates. Why? Because they live in the water. For upon their death, they are eaten by other fish or disintegrate. Usually that's what happens. When a fish is dead, they will be eaten by other fish or they will be just decayed and gone. But the problem is this. However, fossil fish have been located in sedimentary rock. That means what you have seen inside the rock, right? Inside the rock, you have the fossils of fish. How can that happen? How can that happen? That is a question, right? That it's hard for them to explain. Usually fish won't be, you cannot find fish as fossil, because usually fish is there in the water. When a fish dies, what happened? It is either eaten up or it is decays and go in the water. But how can you see the fossils of fish inside the rock? That tells us what? This points to a global catastrophe. Something happened globally that took fish and deposited into mud, and later the mud became rock, and the fish is there, the fossil is there. Dinosaurs of the fossils have also been found in positions suggesting a sudden death. Not its flesh is decayed, it was out there open in the air, that's, what do you see? If you look at all these dinosaurs, something happened suddenly, sudden death. One evolutionist wrote, many entire skeletons of duck-billed dinosaurs have been excavated in a swimming position. See, that is what they have seen. Swimming position with the head thrown back as if in death throes. So what could be the reason? The reason is nothing but all of this were dead because of a flood. Genesis flood is the main reason. For example, another example is found in the Cumberland Bone Cave in Maryland. In this cave, the remains of dozens of species of mammals have been found together with reptiles and birds from different types of climates and habitats. Fossil hippopotamus are plentiful in Sicily, that is in Italy, and they have been mined as a source for charcoal. Fossil records do not point uniformitarianism, but to catastrophism, such as would have been produced by a global flood. So what I'm saying here, it is difficult for geologists to explain what really happened, that you have this much of fossils. And for example, you go to the Middle East, you get the oil, right, crude oil. It all comes from a massive deposit of plants and animals, right? That's how you get crude oil. People use petrol, it is dug from the earth. Why you get it? Because something has happened and all the vegetables, plants, trees, and animals died together, went into the mud, deposited there. And now you go to Middle East, you go to Russia, you go to some of the African countries, people get oils. It's simply because of this one. Okay, so I'm saying, for us, there is no problem to explain any of these findings, because we would say this is because of flood. The fourth result of the flood, an ice age following the flood. All right, ice age. Aftermath of the Noahic flood would have been an ice age. Because of the extreme modification in the Earth water cycle, this would set up conditions for an ice age, right? Furthermore, there was change in Earth climatic condition, rapid cooling at the poles and warming at the equator would have induced excessive snowfalls and buildup of vast ice sheets. After a few centuries, conditions stabilized and ice retreated. All right, so what happened? An ice age began. That stable atmosphere, the mild weather that the earth had because of the a kind of canopy system that earth had. When after the flood, when it was completely removed, the thick cloud became so thin Now the sunshine started to hit the earth, and what happened? The poles, South Pole and North Pole, began to cool down, and equator, equator of the earth, the center of the earth. Remember, you have the North Pole, for example. Imagine, here is the earth, this is the North Pole, this is the South Pole, full of ice here also. And here is the equator, right? Maybe it is going in our country somewhere under Sri Lanka, somewhere there. That is where the line goes, right? The equator lines. So when the sunshine hits, the equator becomes so warm, right? It warms, and sea becomes warm. And what happened? It pushes the air and pushes everything, and it becomes a lot of snow. It started to snow in the south because the weather is really cooler here, and people who live here in the equator and surrounding place have rain, right? You don't have snow, right? But for example, maybe some of you live in Nepal and Bhutan has snow, right? Sometime, but people who live in Delhi, I don't know whether they have ever experienced snow, or then all those southern states have never experienced snow, because closer to the equator, warmer weather, to the poles, cooler weather. Cooler means it is extremely cold, and therefore ice age began. What is the result? Right? Yes, mammoths. This would explain millions of mammoths found where? Mammoths, remember we talked about mammoths. Along the coastline of the northern Siberia and into Alaska are buried the remains of about 5 million mammoths. 5 million, that means 50 lakhs million mammoths are buried under the ice. Under the ice. On one island in this area, the soil consists of sand, ice, and such a quantity of mammoth bones, right? A lot of mammoth bone, that they seem to be the chief substance of the island. In some places, the mammoths are entombed in ice. In others, they are frozen into sedimentary strata, under the soil. The refrigeration has been so effective that mammoth carcasses, that flesh, that flesh, have been poured to feed dogs. Dogs are eating the flesh of mammoths in Siberia and other places, in Alaska. Dogs are eating how? So how come they are mammoths? How come? It is simply after the flood, weather changed quite a bit. Yes, the poles were livable once. Human beings could live in the north and southern poles, but Arctic and Antarctic. But now, no, because of ice, right? It's like so huge area of the northern pole is fully covered with ice. So D. Young has succinctly summarized the creationist perspective concerning an ice age. This is what he said. Let's read. There is strong evidence that ice once stretched far beyond its present boundaries of Arctic and Antarctic regions. The ice age resulted in deformed rock layers, hills of rock debris that were transported by ice. The flat areas where large amounts of meltwater flowed outward across upper North America, including the Midwest, and a vast continental ice sheet, see, like a continent ice sheet, reached a thickness of thousands of feet. thousands of feet deep ice. Try to visualize the ice mass standing as high as small airplanes fly. That means, you know, how an airplane can fly that much high. Usually it is 30,000. So ice mass is so huge. The land underneath was actually depressed by great weight of overlying ice. Many creationists believe that this ice age occurred directly following the Genesis flood. Since ice evidence is still present today, until the vegetation fully recovered following the flood's devastation and the earth climate was cooler than at present. Plants and trees were very effective in absorbing earth's sunlight energy and warming the earth. Other cooling factors may have been increased volcanic dust and cloudiness, reduced atmospheric carbon dioxide. The post-flood colder period of time probably lasted for several centuries. You know, many would say the earth was much more colder in the poles centuries ago. It was a difficult time for many centuries, including the tropical dinosaurs that had been protected on the ark. There may be hints of a cooler earth in the book of Job. It was written about 4,000 years ago, centuries after flood. It mentions snow. Remember, maybe the book of Job is probably one of the books that is written earlier in the Bible, very old. Very old. All right. Modern geologists have continually revised their estimates of the Ice Age era. Many of them, both secular creationists, now date the Ice Age as only a few thousand years ago. Some geologists speak of multiple ice ages because of overlapping layers of glacial evidence. Most of the creationists favor a single ice age, with the extent of ice advancing and receding several times as the temperature and precipitation fluctuated. This resulted in later ice layers and debris being deposited over previous layers. A colder climate following Genesis flood is consistent with the scientific evidence. In contrast, secular science has no clear explanation for an ice age. They have no way to explain. The usual claims of a cooler sun, changes in Earth orbits, and a large meteorite collision with the Earth all have serious scientific difficulties. So how atheists and scientists would explain for ice age? They would say it is because of a cooler sun. That is one of their idea. Or maybe Earth changed its orbit a little bit. That is their idea. But that's not the way how we interpret. We believe that the ice age followed because of after the flood.